So I've been going through and turning off codes as they pop up. Got RPM. But my gauge is showing 80 PSI, which it was doing that before I did the Terminator, so I think the sensor's actually bad or something's up with that. I have voltage, temperature is accurate, fuel gauge, RPM. I'll have to hook up the trans temp because that's, you know, through the transmission. So I'll worry about that when I do the 80E, but range selector works. That stuff's all good, and no check engine lights. Fan is on. Terminator shows 194, 196. So they're really close. So just went out for my first drive with the Escalade. I didn't really go over a whole lot of the tuning stuff or what I was doing because it's all just like the Terminator stuff that I did before. I just drove it around and then did the fuel transfer to base. Did that once. And then I was just kind of poking around. Everything seemed like it was driving okay. I didn't really notice anything. And then I was looking at the handheld and it said I was in first gear and I was cruising like 40 miles an hour. That was a little bit strange. And then it clicked in my head that when I went through the wizard, I selected 4L80. I had 4L80 on the brain and I selected 4L80 when I went through the wizard. So I went back to select 4L60 and then it never shifted out of first gear when it was set up for 4L60. It just revved and never came out of gear. So what I think was happening when it was set on 4L80 and I didn't notice it, it was like in third gear or fourth gear all the time. And just light throttle leave from zero, I couldn't really notice it that much. It would bog a little bit, but not really weird. And then it would just kind of carry out that gear so I could get up to 40 miles an hour and not really think much of it. And the RPM wasn't too high. So I left it in 4L80 and then came back around, but it's showing me input shaft speed, but it's not showing me speed. So I'm going to check and see if I messed up the speed sensor wiring because there's a turbine speed and a vehicle speed. So I'm going to see if I switched those or if they were labeled wrong or what it was because I extended one of them to make it to the transfer case. So I got to look at that yet. Other than that, I've just been kind of going through and as codes pop up, I've been deleting stuff. I kind of want to see what codes pop up as I'm driving instead of just going through and shutting all of them off, which you probably could do, but there's certain conditions that need to be met for the codes to pop up. So if the wires are snipped, sometimes it'll just activate like the voltage low circuit or whatever. Some of the sensors have like a low side and a high side code. So if it's snipped, it's never going to hit the high side. It's only going to be low side or the circuit is bad codes that pop up. So you don't have to delete all of them. So I'm kind of making a list of that. So let's go under and check this transmission out. All right, so I did end up extending the wrong one. So there it is, the turbine speed. And you can see that I extended it. It's got the regular loom there, so I accidentally extended the turbine speed. All right, so now we got speedometer working also. So I did verify the speed with the draggy. You can see we have gear working. It's shifting now. I do have it set to 4L60. So that's set up right. And 21 miles per hour, 22, 24, 23. So they're really close. So everything's looking pretty good. 198 degree temperature, fan off. And I have it set to come on at 200. And go off at 190. So there the fan's on. Right before 200. Alright, so I added AC pressure and AC clutch. So I will turn the AC on. We got AC clutch engaged. Pressure's now at 1.75 volts. Turn it off. There you go. AC off. Perfect. All right, so the drive was successful. I did split the vehicle speed. So let me back up a little bit. So when I went to hook up the vehicle speed, I ended up extending the turbine speed wire. So I just wasn't paying attention and I cut the wrong one and extended it. And that was just my issue. It said turbine speed right on it. I knew it as soon as I looked at it that I did it wrong. So not a big deal. No, that one's longer than it needs to be. What I ended up doing, I ended up using the speed sensor from the stock computer because that was still down there and it was long enough to go to the transfer case. And I just took the purple wire out of the plug. So if you look at this type of plug right here, it was the one on the left side. If you're looking at the clip side, it was the one on the left. It was a purple wire on the Holly and purple white wire on the stock computer. And I just ran a jumper between the two wires. So the one from the GM computer is plugged into transfer case, and I just ran a wire from purple wire to the purple wire on the Terminator harness, and it works fine. So I didn't have to calibrate anything for like vehicle speed or anything. It just worked. So I think that's pretty much it. All the sensors that I have are working. When I do the 4L80, I'll hook up the transmission temperature. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how this thing turned out. It took about 3 days total to do it, but I took my time on a lot of stuff. So you could do this really quick. Just throw the Terminator on and then piece in all your stuff a little bit later, get it running, and then start to add your sensors and everything back in. But I kind of did it all in one shot, which, like I said in the video earlier, it could have been a big problem if there was any issues with it, because I kind of finalized a lot of stuff and I would have had to rip everything back apart if there was a problem. Overall, pretty seamless, couple hiccups, but nothing major. But I just think this is the coolest thing. I'm completely fascinated by this, like using the stock computer for one thing and the Terminator for another thing. And now my mind is just going insane on what other things you could do with stock computer and Terminator together. And I'm also brainstorming a way to see if there's a way you can keep the cruise control, because it eliminated the cruise control because you're not using the factory tack module and everything like that. So I'm kind of brainstorming, and I might try to play with it. So we'll see. If I have some spare time someday, I might play with that stuff. But thanks for watching. Have a good one.